People who were born deaf but gained hearing later in life, what objects did you expect to make noise? Seems like everyone is answering the reverse. My friend got his hearing at age 6. He swears to this day that he thought flowers would make some sort of noise and that's what attracted bees. Obligatory not me, but my godfather/dad's lifelong best friend. He was born with hearing, but lost it before age 2 due to some health issues. Went his entire childhood deaf, and in his 20s finally got a hearing aid. At the time, he and his wife were living in the downtown of a large city. Apparently he had it about 2 weeks before he threw it out, saying everything was too loud. He hated the noise and sound, that things were more peaceful without it. 15 years later, he moved out into the country on a few hundred acres of woods. Still, he refused to wear a hearing aid and kept refusing for the next 10 years. Finally, his wife convinced him to give it a try, and his mind was blown. He couldn't believe how quiet everything was and how much he enjoyed hearing. He finally explained that he thought the noise of the traffic downtown was the wind and that it sounded like that everywhere, all the time. So, for 25 plus years, he thought wind sounded like the hundreds of cars driving by. My old roommate in New York City got implants at, I think he was 25 or 26. He was shocked that the radiators in the house didn't make noise. He could feel them and was absolutely sure, given their shaking and vibrating from time to time, that they were going to be quite noisy. On the flip side, he was deeply annoyed by the buzz of fluorescent lighting, which he did not expect to make noise. My cousin was born deaf and went through an operation to recover part of his hearing when he was 12. He sometimes uses hearing aids, but can get by without them in general. His family had a bunny, Tupu. Of course he had learned about cows mooing, cats meowing, etc. before he had his surgery. He was very shocked when he came home and greeted his bunny that it made no sound. It took the longest time for him to understand that bunnies are pretty quiet animals in general. He explained he thought all pets were loud. Not me, but when I was in high school a bunch of kids would meet in a nearby no man's land and hang out before school started. I spent most of my mornings loudly talking to my almost deaf friend. One day he showed up and said he had a new hearing aid. I didn't have to yell at him to get him to hear me anymore. Yay. Few minutes later he asked what that noise was. I asked which noise, listening and hearing nothing out of the ordinary. I don't know. It's like a weird beeping, almost musical, really bizarre but actually kind of pleasing. Took me a minute to realize my man was hearing birdsong for the first time in his life. Was a pretty cool moment. I had a child friend that gained hearing, and she didn't realize you could control the volume of your voice. So when I whispered to her she said, "Hang on, I think I need to adjust my hearing aid." At first I just thought, oh, it mustn't be working, until I realized what was going on. She whispered to me for about 2 weeks solid just to practice. D. Yes, she also practiced shouting, but we did that in secluded woodlands. Well, after the cochlear implant, I started hearing a lot of things that I never knew existed. But, here are a few things I thought would make a noise, but nope. Edit to clarify this. 1. I expected the light bulbs to hiss or flickering sound when you turn them on. I was so disappointed. 2. I thought you could hear your eyes close, blink, but there is no sound when you close your eyelids. No whoosh. 3. You know how wind makes a noise going through trees? I thought it would make more noises going through hair. Nope. 4. Now I could hear soft sounds, but I still get spooked when I see a bug crawling, and I don't hear it. They don't make a noise at all. 5. Pooping does not make a sound, only the splash into the toilet. I thought the body makes a noise to push it out. I was disappointed. Again, obligatory not me, but my dad progressively went deafer as life went on, and was almost 100% deaf by around age 20. He got a cochlear implant when I was around 7 years old, put them in, asked my mom, are the kids always this dang loud? and proceeded to take the cochlear implant off, so he didn't have to listen to my little brother and I yelling. Always thought that was funny. My dad was born with severe hearing loss, but it wasn't detected until he was 50. His parents just thought he was ignorant if he didn't answer them. It's quite sad actually. His parents definitely failed him. He is also dyslexic and it's affected every part of his life and self-worth, etc. Anywho, my mum told him he needed a hearing test because the TV was starting to deafen her. He thought, oh, it's just years of loud music and using a shotgun occasionally. So he has this hearing test and some other tests etc. and gets told he was actually born deaf in one ear and significant loss in another. He can't hear phonics. You can imagine his problems through life. He finally gets hearing aids and the first day he sits down to eat a packet of crisps, he absolutely flips out. What the F is that noise? Holy shxt, my head is exploding. We had to explain you can hear the crunching of food etc and some foods are louder than others etc. It was heartbreaking to see what he's missed out on. Now he only uses his hearing aids after a good nag from my mum. We still have to put up with his noisy eating, but he's back to ignorance's bliss lol. Got waterproof hearing aids. Taking a shower scared the everlasting Christ out of me. So my dad was born deaf and got a cochlear implant in his late 30s. He has since passed away, so I can't ask him this question directly, but a related story. When I was a newborn, my dad was holding me and my mom, who is hearing, was in the kitchen. My dad rushed into the kitchen with me and asked what I was saying because my mouth was moving, and my mom had to explain babies couldn't talk until they were much bigger. It's amazing how limited your perception can be if you aren't surrounded by people who can communicate with you. Unfortunately, he didn't learn how to sign until he was a young adult as well, so his formative years were basically without language. See below. He and his mother created a very basic language to identify objects / some actions, but that's all. When he first heard sound, he didn't understand it, and it wasn't what he expected. In response to someone clapping and asking if his implant was working after waking from surgery, he said no, it wasn't working. It was, and that it felt like movement in his head. I wasn't born deaf, but went deaf due to illness probably around the age of 4 months. Got my hearing back around 8 years old through surgery. I used to think traffic lights made noise. Street signs too. Like when a stop sign has a blinking light for added visibility. I think that's actually where I got the idea in my head. They're trying to get your attention, right? So of course they must put sirens in all the traffic lights. My mom says I used to hold my ears when we drive through an intersection, though I don't remember that part. Not me. My good friend who's hard of hearing told me about how, before he got hearing aids, he thought that all fridges made a beeping sound, like an alarm, when you open them, so the house knows when you're getting something. Turns out his mom just told him that to stop him from eating all their snacks. I had a friend who was born deaf, but got hearing aids. She always thought people yawning was people randomly screaming, so it always confused her why people would be screaming in the library, movies, at church, in public, etc. She never asked why were people screaming, because she thought it was normal. After she got the hearing aid, she thought she'd be hearing people scream when they yawned. My 3-year-old son is deaf, and we just had a visit this morning from his signing teacher who is also deaf herself. She recently had cochlear implants fitted, and while we were talking / signing she said, "I'm sorry, I can't concentrate. I can hear a horrible constant noise. It's not stopped the whole time I've been here." Turned out it was the rain on my conservatory roof. One of my close friends in high school has a younger sister who used to be deaf before she got cochlear implants. We were watching a silent movie for a film class, and her younger sister thought that all movies made noise. She ran out thinking she was deaf again. Edit for clarity, we watched it at her home for an assignment. We were pretty quiet. Younger sister just panicked to see a movie playing, and no noise, because her experience is that movies are real loud. Only realized that she could still hear after she heard the door close. Meanest prank ever. Thanks for watching. Did you enjoy this video? Subscribe for more.